After a long 7 months of waiting, Glitch have finally dropped episode 7 of Murder Drones. Now, the ultimate question people are thinking, did episode 7 save the show? Well, it goes a bit deeper than that. I'm Yagster, and I love Murder Drones. And as a diehard fan, I gotta say, this episode really threw me for a loop. There's a lot happening at once, so here's my review for it. Before we start the review though, I'm gonna briefly summarize what happened in the episode, just to get you up to speed. If you want to skip the recap and go straight to the review, then go to this time on the screen. Without further ado, let's get to it. We start the episode off with a flashback with Dr. Chambers. Nori's being sacrificed in the cathedral, and Dr. Chambers has to retrieve Yeva. Chamber gets Yeva and he comes back to the cathedral, where he sees a pretty shocking scene. We end the flashback with Nori throwing a cross right at Dr. Chambers' face, and the clip ends there. We then splice back to the present, where we see Nori's heart watching the entire thing. Whilst Nori's heart goes off, we come back to the elevator. En, Uzi, and Tessa just land from the elevator, and they're kinda stuck. En tries to free themselves and asks Uzi to use the solver, and to no avail. Eventually, Uzi overheats, and she kinda collapses the cave-in. This ends up separating them, and, well, that doesn't go very well. After that, we cut back to the surface on Copper 9, where Thad and Lizzie are going towards the Murder Drone's lair. Suddenly, Mrs. Effective Drone flies by them. We then cut back to En by himself. His arm has been impaled on a rock and he has to saw it off. Before that though, we see one of the highlights of the episode. After a very interesting cutaway gag, we cut back to Uzi, who picks up a lantern. That's all she does. We then cut back to En, who's in for one hell of a road trip. The absolute solver touches him, and he gets Vietnam flashbacks. After reliving the past, En goes for a road trip. We then cut to Uzi entering the cathedral. She's at the computer that Nori's heart was at earlier in the episode, and she watches everything. Oh, hey En. Yeah, he's not having a good time. After nearly dying, Nori comes in to save him. She then reveals that she's Uzi's mother, which is pretty shocking to En. We then cut back to the B-plot with Thad and Lizzie. Jay destroyed the spaceship that En landed, and she flies off. The doorman himself appears, and it's revealed that he's making a new railgun. Khan is officially going to war. We then cut back to Tessa, who's about to burn down the labs like she said in episode 6. Doll then appears, and they duke it out. Tessa vanishes and Doll is left to die. Then she gets FNAF jump scared. After all of that, we cut back to the flashback that started the episode off. Man, I am saying the word cut a lot doing this recap. Anyways, we see what really caused the core collapse. Then we transition back to En and Nori. It doesn't last for long though, as we cut back to Uzi. We then see quite possibly the most horrifying scene in the episode. Or at least one of. We see Doll slowly walking over to Uzi, before subsequently keeling over and dying. She tells Uzi to fight back, and that's the last thing she ever does. Uzi then turns around and then sees Tessa waiting by the door. After that, we cut back to Nori and En. I'm gonna be real, I don't care about this scene, so we're gonna skip to the good stuff. We see Tessa about to kill Uzi, accusing her of killing Doll. This is where the episode just really... Let's just play the clip, man. Do it! Do it! Do it!
You knew about the patch, yes or no? One chance.
No fucking way!
You know why I keep you around here?
What? What the fuck? What? What? After decapitating his surrogate mother figure, En tries to reconcile with Uzi, though that doesn't go very well.
That's really sweet, big brother.
I've made a severe and continuous lapse in my judgment.
Then, right before En's killed, Nori comes to rescue him. We then get the best scene in the entire episode. After duking it out for a bit, it looks like Nori and En are about to lose. Right up until En pulls out his trump card. Nori then proceeds to Will Smith Uzi, which snaps her out of it.
Frickin' mother!
Oh, wow!
We then get one of the Murder Drones moments of all time.
You don't frickin' own me!
We then cut to Tessa's decapitated head, slowly rolling towards the pit, right up until her body picks it back up and snaps it in place. After this, Tessa, quotation marks, drags Doll's body and consumes it. And, well, I'll just let the clip speak for itself.
Oh yes. Get snuck upon.
Right after that, Tessin, or Flesha, whatever you want to call it, jumps into the pit, and this happens. Wait, who's that? Oh, it's Jay. Okay, yeah. Jay finally gets some screen time. And, it looks like she's been watching the Magic School Bus.
Seatbelts, everyone!
Cruising on down Main Street, you're relaxed and feeling good.
After Mr. Doorman hits Jay with the bus, we see Thad and Lizzie just chilling there. Man, episode 8 is gonna start off great. Cutting back to Uzi and N, we can see they're just hanging out? Oh, come on, that was a good one. I would commentate on all this, but we all know what happens.
Everything.
Uzi, don't you dare!
After sacrificing herself, Uzi accepts her fate, and she slowly descends down into the pit. She wakes up, and she finds herself inside hyperspace, and the episode ends. And that's the recap done. Man, that was a lot to process, and I'm the one recapping it. Oh, what an episode. Without further ado, here's my review for Murder Drones Episode 7, Mass Destruction. Let's answer the question I asked in the beginning of the video. Did this episode save Murder Drones? It really depends on who you ask, but I'm definitely going to say yes. This is without doubt an easy top 3 episode. Let's get this out of the way. The fight scene between N and Uzi is without question the highlight of the episode. It really rivals the knife dance for what the best fight scene is inside this show. Me personally, I'm gonna have to give the slight edge to this one. Everything just worked so damn well. The visuals, the cinematics, the music. Oh my god. The music is so good during that scene. AJ Despirito is such a gift. He's so damn good at his job. Besides that, there's also the pacing. The pacing is great and you're never bored watching it. There's always something going on. Some would argue that that's a weakness, but I personally think it's a really good strength. It's what makes episodes like episode 3 so universally loved by the community. It just captures the viewer's attention and it doesn't let go until the very, very end. Take what I said though and crank it all the way up, because that is exactly what episode 7 does. There's never not a moment where something's happening. Not to mention the characters. The characters are at their all-time best in this episode. The best example of this is N. Throughout the show, he's mostly remained pretty linear, but now he's, well, doing stuff like this.
Cute. You know why I keep you around here?
Would the end from episodes 3, 4, and especially 5 do that? I can tell you with full confidence, definitely not. Also, my god, the animation quality. It is the one thing that has consistently gotten better over time with this show. There are shots from this episode that just don't look like Murder Drones. Here, let me show you a few. I'd also like to mention that the comedy this episode is very well handled. None of the jokes take away from the episode, and it flows very smoothly. The only complaints I have is the one cutaway gag with N. It really took away from seeing V again, and it broke a lot of my immersion. It feels pretty similar to a joke done in The Amazing Digital Circus, but it is what it is. Also, god damn, this episode is dark. This is Liam Vickers at his finest, and it really shows inside the product. Not to mention, this episode was genuinely horrifying at some points. The only other episodes that really capture this feeling are episodes 1 and 6. I really can't commend it enough, it's such an accomplishment. Overall, this episode has a lot of good things going for it. However, nothing is without flaw, and I do have a lot to criticize about this episode. Let's get this right out of the way. The biggest L this episode has is the Tessa as Sin reveal. Tessa was introduced in episode 3, and she was built up throughout the show to be this kind of heroic character, you know, trying to save humanity and all that. Then, suddenly, the show decided to flip it on its head and, well, make her a twist villain. Now listen, I know there was a lot of foreshadowing, but it still just doesn't feel right. The only other big hint we had about this was in episode 4, with that weird mannequin thing sitting in the chair. The thing is, Uzi doesn't really commentate or say much about that. It kinda just happens and we're just left in the dark about it. Once we cut to this episode though, shit really hit the fan. Once you think about the bigger picture, it really becomes apparent that this felt like a plot twist just for the sake of subverting expectations. This reveal really weakened the narrative, and here's why I think that. Up until episode 7, Tessa was a character you could have easily rooted for. You can root for her because her goal is very compelling. She wants to save humanity. I mean, that's a pretty good thing, is it not? This gave the show an underlying theme of morality. It asked you as the viewer to decide which one you thought was better, saving humanity or love. And that's a pretty good theme because you can root for both of them. They're both good in their own right, and you can easily make an argument as to why. It just breaks normal writing tropes, and that's a really good thing. Now, because of this reveal, we just have a generic good versus evil story which wouldn't have happened otherwise. She offered something that no other character could possibly offer. That something being a human perspective. Throughout the entire show, we're focused on the drones. I mean, the show is called Murder Drones, so, you know. But the point is, Tessa gave us something really cool and different. She was a very intriguing character, and she had a lot of good backstory. Once the reveal happens, all of Tessa's previous scenes just don't work. Subconsciously, you as the viewer are going to rewatch those scenes and question what she's trying to accomplish. You really just can't see it the same way ever again. If Tessa was just a human and just, you know, stayed human, then that would have been way better for the narrative. Then again, this is all my opinion. Trust me, I could go on about this for a long time, and I will inside a different video, so stay tuned for that. Before the twist, Tessa was a very divisive character inside the community. You had those defending her, and you had the many who really didn't like her. So I have to ask, dear viewer, what do you think about all of this? I genuinely want to know because she was my favorite character and she wasn't a very popular one at that. Anyways, time for my next critique. It's about Doll. Oh, Doll. Yeah, they really screwed you inside this episode, huh? I have quite a few problems with the way they ended Doll's story inside this episode, so I'll talk about that now. The biggest issue I have is how her arc just kinda ends. Her entire motive throughout the entire show was to avenge her parents, and she did exactly that. She quite literally caused V's death last episode. So I have to ask, why doesn't she mention that inside this episode? Is it because she doesn't know? If she doesn't know, then why doesn't anyone tell her? Sure, I mean, the only character she interacts with is Tessa, but a line of dialogue about her killing V would have been way better than just nothing. Keep in mind, she literally had no dialogue inside episode 6. We're meant to feel bad for Doll, but it's hard to understand her. It's almost like having no dialogue makes it extremely hard to understand what a character's thinking. It's all just a giant mess. Her arc is incomplete and she just dies. I really hope somehow, some way they can fix it, because right now it is a massive problem inside the show. Moving on, we have, quite possibly, one of the biggest reveals inside the episode. Nori. Now, on my first watch, I was pretty confused, cause I had no idea who this Purple Heart was. Right up until she said this line.
How do you know my daughter?
Now, I have pretty mixed thoughts on Nori, so this may be a bit of a hot take, but I don't really think she's a character. In my eyes, Nori's just a plot device. After she puts an end to the N versus Uzi fight, she quite literally gets booted from the show. She served her purpose, and that's kinda all she does. She only exists to just save N and just make the plot less interesting. She has about 2 lines of dialogue where she actually feels like a character and not just some glorified tool.
You stupid or something?
Oh yeah.
Looking for a hunk named Khan.
At the time of me writing this, she feels like a carbon copy of Uzi from episode 1. Which, I mean, that really depends on how you interpret that.
Bite me!
Bite me.
I feel like I'm forgetting something. Oh yeah, Jay. Yeah, she certainly exists inside this episode. She literally has under a minute of screen time. It is the saddest thing ever. I'm really not gonna lie, the entire B plot felt very rushed in my opinion. The last time we see Khan is episode 5 and he just gets launched into a pillar. So between then and now, he somehow decided to man up and actually want to make a railgun? It's not necessarily out of character for Khan, but it does feel a bit weird just having this sudden jump. If we spent a few minutes in episode 6 focusing on this plotline, it would have flowed much more smoothly. Having Thad and Lizzie along makes sense, but it's also kinda weird in context. The last time we see either of them is inside episode 4, and they don't really do anything that important. Thad literally vanishes and Lizzie just nearly dies, and that's kinda all they do. To me, it just feels like they have to use the named characters that we already know, so those two got tagged along for the B-plot. But like I just said seconds ago, why does this make no sense? The reason why this doesn't make any sense is because Khan's the de facto leader of the WDF. You know, that group of drones that's meant to defend the bunker and, you know, the colony. I mean, sure, it's a stealth mission, but how come at the end of the episode none of them are inside the bus? It feels very off-putting to me. I'm not gonna lie though, this plotline looks very promising. I just really hope at the end of it, Jay doesn't die. If Jay's entire purpose in the show is just to die 3 times, then, well, that's a fucking sad existence right there. I will say it time and time again, we need justice for Jay. Well, that's gonna be it for my review for episode 7. I'm still gonna stand by my words and say this episode is an easy top 3. It has a lot going for it, and it definitely paid off in the end. Despite its issues, I want to make it very clear that I still love this show, very, very much. When you criticize something, it's because you have a love and passion for that certain project. This show has been around with me ever since freshman year of high school, so it means quite a lot to me sentimentally. This episode may be called Mass Destruction, but it just massively saved the show.